Hey, welcome again to the Drag Illustrated, the racing business with me, Jason Dukes. Welcome to another episode. Again, this is a podcast where we're going to be talking the business of motorsports. And the business of motorsports is super interesting because sometimes talking the business of motorsports means changing the camera angle and actually shooting the camera on the people who are normally the people interviewing or the people, like giving the interviews and telling the stories. This is going to be a podcast where we tell those people's stories, also get behind the business of what they do so that we can help you run your motorsports business. Again, some of the goals of this show is to help people innovate and create new businesses in motorsports, and also to help out the people in motorsports that have businesses that really just want a business podcast. So today's episode, we have Amanda Busick. And Amanda Busick is a broadcaster extraordinaire, reporter, ambassador, really tells everyone's stories. One of the reasons, but beyond just being a great person, one of the reasons why I wanted Amanda to be on the show is because of her reach in motorsports. Amanda works just with me, works with SRO World Challenge, also works in Ferrari Challenge, works in NHRA. You always see her on the top end interviews, works in the NASCAR Truck Series. She's all over the place. So can give us a really in-depth view of the whole landscape of motorsports and some of the differences, what works some places, what doesn't work, but also to hear her story and how what she's done has essentially become a business on its own. So let me welcome in Amanda Busick. And Amanda Busick, welcome to the Drag Illustrated, the racing business with me, Jason. How are you?
I am good. I'll be honest. I'm not necessarily my anxiety of being the interviewee is the interviewer, but here we are nonetheless.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, that is one of the shifts that a lot of people have to, and we'll talk about this a little bit more towards the end once we get to know you a little bit better. But that's one of the hardest shifts that I had to make in my business, is that I was always behind the scenes, like either a product manager or a person manager, and always pushing them forward. And then all of a sudden I built a business where it was like, oh, wait, I'm the business. Like, I'm the face of the business. All of a sudden I need to do that to myself. And it's super, super uncomfortable.
There's a lot of layers to it. And you even add in the additional layer of social media and the expectations there, all varying by client. And then also probably a little bit of self-motivating as well to make sure that you're staying relevant and that your brand is presented and consumed as such. But yeah, there's a lot of different parts to it. I'm not necessarily great with attention on me. I do love being able to bring the spotlight and attention to others in a way to help them be a vehicle of such for that.
Yeah. So I gave an introduction, and that's the things that I know you as. Tell us a little bit more of just where Amanda is right now, and what other clients do you work with? Where can you see it? And also, let me just tell you that I'm still waiting to be in a room with two Amandas so that I could disprove something, because sometimes the weirdest thing for me is that we'll be at a trailer or in a media center somewhere eating lunch, and I'll look up on the screen and it's like, wait, Amanda's at the NHRA race, Amanda's at the Ferrari Challenge race, but we're eating lunch here at the SRO Media Center. There's got to be four of her.
Listen, if you can figure out that technology, I will take it. No, it's so fun. And luckily, I think the coolest part about all of it is being able to have bosses that support all of them. I think kind of in the post-COVID world, it started really with NHRA and kind of my bosses at Fox being like, go do what you can. And ever since that, it's been able to kind of all, piece together as best as I can with trying to honor every single piece of it. It's July right now, and I'm already looking at what next season could look at from a structural standpoint. Luckily, at this point, kind of our schedules they're back to being pretty reflective of what they would have been year by year. So I can kind of already project what things might look like. But it's it's a balance of all of them. It's trying to make sure that no one feels slighted. Everyone feels that they're getting the best of me and the work that I bring. And then sometimes I have to sometimes figure out how to take care of me in there too, which I'm not good at, but learning to get better at it.
Yeah, well, we can probably work on that one day, of course. But yeah, I mean, also sharing that with people, because that's a common thing in the industry, where people feel bad or feel like they're the only ones, that they're the only ones not doing that. But let's start out all the way in the beginning, and let's talk about Amanda Busick as a kid. Like, how did this happen?
I think I was born a performer. There's photos of me as a kid where I'm like standing on chairs. I have curlers in my hair, doing performances. If you ask my brother, I think there were many a times that he would have thrown my karaoke machine in the pond behind our house. So I just always kind of into performance, into things, singing from my earliest days of kindergarten. I was doing the shows, all of the chorus concerts at church or in elementary school, middle school, high school, just very into drama and music. And actually, from a broadcasting standpoint, when I was in elementary school, I was able to be one of the anchors on our kind of that closed network inter school show. And my favorite part of that role is I got to do the birthdays every day. And you were a very popular kid when you get to tell other kids happy birthday every day. So that was kind of a highlight there. But yeah, that was from a childhood standpoint, I lost my father really young in an accident. But from everything that I know about him, from his larger than life personality and never meet a stranger kind of vibe, I guess I am his twin, as much as I've been told that throughout my life.
Nice. Well, tell us a little bit. You talked about kid, student, and reporter. How about sports and motorsports? Like, where did that tie in?
Yeah, I don't think there was any avoiding that growing up in North Carolina. I kid from Greensboro. It was motorsports and ACC football and basketball. I go back to, I can still see it was fourth grade. We were learning ratios by win-loss records of ACC basketball teams. And we would dress up in our colors. At the time, it was a split household. Some people were NC State, some people were Chapel Hill. So my brother ended up going to Wake Forest. So a lot of
so he split it up even more.
So and then on the motorsports side, again, you're surrounded by all of it. From the drag racing side, I remember going down to Rockingham as a kid. We had family members that had a super late model team that raced on some of the dirt tracks not far from our house. My aunt and uncle live a mile and a half from Piedmont Dragway. You would hear the motorcycles at night. So yeah, it was it's all there.
Nice. So how did you get into motorsports as a job?
It's crazy, actually. It's one of those stories that I still think, wow. It's really pinchable, really. I was doing college sports originally, and I started that pursuit kind of in 2010. I was one of those kids that got pretty affected by the recession. My goal was, at the time, I had such a unique experience in college that I really wanted to work in education. And I was working in for the state of North Carolina in their virtual public school. And our fund kind of got slashed with all the budget stuff that was happening around that time. So that was kind of your first, hey, welcome to adulthood. You have no job. And I just remember I walked back into the restaurant that I worked at in college and was like, it's me. And funny enough, I was able to use that job to transfer to New York City and worked at the Del Frisco's there at night so that I could do an internship with a sports agent during the day. It took about 2.5 years of doing that before I was hired as a production assistant in Chicago, doing college sports. And then did that for roughly 3 years in different roles. I was with Campus Insiders for probably two and a half of those years. And then I left to join ESPN on a production role. Mm-hmm. I was a stage manager / booth operator for Beth Mowins, Joey Galloway, and Paul Carcaterra. And to be able to travel in the field and work with those guys one-on-one, the producers, the directors, I actually credit that job a lot with being able to not have a seamless transition into what I know now, but to at least have an expectation of what, when 10 people are talking in your headset, right. Going through the vehicle of what voice matters, those kind of things I learned.
And just for some of the people that aren't familiar with some of those names, what was the show? What were you guys producing?
So we were on the ESPN2 noon game for college football. Okay. Beth Mowins is one of the only female play-by-play voices in that space. And to work alongside her, I'm still in awe of her professionalism, her prep, her, I don't know, I love seeing Beth in that role because she was so strong and structured and sure of who she is, and what she brings to the job. One of the things that I always tell people about Beth Mowins, when we would have some of the, as October, November starts hitting, it gets really cold in Big Ten country, and most of our games were in and around there. We had a game at Wyoming one weekend. Beth Mowins is someone that leaves the booth open.
Yeah.
She wants to be in it. She wants to feel it, to know what's happening. And I will never forget, we had a game at Minnesota, and I went and bought the most expensive jacket I had ever purchased in my life up until that point, because it was -2 degrees. And we knew it the night before, and I was freezing, and it was the best purchase that I made because I used it the next weekend at State College when it was even colder.
Yeah, I did college football in college also. I was a broadcaster. Yeah, that was one of the worst things of having, basically a folder with all your notes on it, and needing to write with an extremely fine pen. But it's -10 degrees out. You can't feel
She was all about it. And I've told that story to different people, and there are broadcasters that are just, close this up. Let me be warm. No, she was all in it. She'd have her scarf on, have her hat on. So that was up until 2015. And then in 2015, I actually left the business completely. There was kind of a point within my family that kind of required more of me in a financial way. And I think if I ever have a soapbox, one of the disappointing things about this industry is, you sometimes work for free, you make little money before even you can get an opportunity to make money. But I had accepted it. I knew that I had really exhausted. I felt like I knew the right people. I knew that I was putting myself in situations to be able to get hired or to be able to find a position. And, a lot of the kids that I mentor now, and the reason why I kind of, every once in a while, someone's going to get, that lucky strike by lightning, and they're at 23, their career is taking off.
Sure.
Most likely it's going to be a lot of playing around in the background before an opportunity presents itself, because there's so much to timing.
Right.
And you could want to be the voice of the Cubs. Well, if John Shambi is going to be the voice of the Cubs for the next 30 years, there's something to timing, right? So you can be the best at something, you can know what you want, and it just physically not be there. And I think that's kind of what I had kind of butted up against, and moved to Boston. I was selling meat Italian sausage to be specific. And I was about 8 months into that when I got a call about drag racing. And it was one of those things. I was excited and apprehensive at the same time. It was, wow, do I really try this again? You know, I have family living with me. Kind of the risk isn't just on me anymore. There's other people that are at risk of me wanting to chase my dream.
Right.
And so I don't want to say I hesitated, but I was like, okay, let me see what this is about.
Well, I will tell you, not to cut you off, but I will tell you, and this is probably something that resonates with a lot of the listeners, and something that a lot of the other guests have had, including myself, where you leave the industry and then you make a whole bunch of meaning behind it, like, oh my God, everyone hates that I'm leaving, and meanwhile everyone's just like, you needed to go make money. And then, you know, you get ready to go back in the industry and you're like, oh, are people going to accept me? And what do my family think? And meanwhile, people are just like, oh, go live your life. Like, we don't.
And this was a brand new space.
Yeah.
You know, the funny part is that I think when I was coming up, I just don't know if I knew you could have a career in motorsports.
Right.
Like, it does seem from an outside looking in, I don't necessarily have deep ties into any space in motorsports. And so what is that path in? And the crazy part about it now is 8 years in, there's no place I'd rather be. And, you know, in our positions, we get, you know, hey, Amanda, what's your dream job? What's next? And I have my dream job.
Right.
And it's an interesting thing and everyone's motivated by different things, right? There's, whether it's exposure or whether it's an increase in financial stability. And don't get me wrong, all of those things matter. But I think when you've had maybe not the easiest path, there's a lot of reflection in being happy with now. Mm-hmm. And I really do not it's funny because working in the different spaces in motorsports, everyone's like, what's your favorite? What's your favorite?
I'm probably going to ask you that.
Try to say that the top end of a drag strip is, I think, the most unique job in all of sports. Mm-hmm. And I treat it as such. I respect it as such. The idea that the risks that these drivers take for our entertainment and being tasked with the duty of how do I perfectly allow them to express themselves that honors their theme, their path, where they are in their career. And it's a beautiful, we witness so much stuff up there that I am just, I love my job.
Well, I mean, also I grew up watching drag racing on TV, and I never really realized the risk of being on the top end until I was the drag manager at Gateway, and we had a divisional race, and, you know, top alcohol funny cars up on the top end, and, you know, and it's like, oh, we need to like let this bomb actually stop before we get close to it, because it's like it's still a bomb, like it's still a bomb. Like, you guys are also taking risks just being on the top end with those things. So it is a very charged environment.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, there has to be the reminder that these things are machines and unpredictable, and anything can happen. But, you know, it goes to, I don't want to downplay the other roles that I get to exist in, because there's no way I would be as good as those without having this tenure and growth that I've been able to have in drag racing. And that's what makes the others so much fun, is that it's now, okay, so you have this foundation, let's go challenge yourself and be part of something different. I remember starting in SRO. This was 2021.
Yeah. And actually, if you don't mind, because this is not just a drag racing business, it's like all industry business. Like, can you take us on that journey from, you brought us up to NHRA drag racing. Like, can you take us on to what was next?
Yeah, so that was in 2016. I started with the NHRA, And that was to start. I was an employee of the organization. I was hired to kind of lead. They were bringing their content in-house. So they wanted a digital reporter or a digital presenter. We were building a studio in their offices in Glendora. So made the move out to LA. And just by chance, as they were building out the studio, I was able to go on the road with the tour while we were building the studio and got to have more one-on-one time with the drivers, more one-on-one time with the production staff at Fox, or for the Fox show. And I think it was probably a couple broadcasts in where one of my social media pieces ended up going into one of our Fox Sports 1 shows. And then I started doing kind of my first top end roles were covering the alcohol classes and pro mod. And by 2017, I was the top end reporter. And I did that in-house until 2019. At the end of 19, I really wanted to get back closer to North Carolina I mentioned kind of the family stuff. And that was a very important move, but it required me going freelance. So went freelance at the end of 19, moved home to North Carolina, and pretty excited about 2020. Had the NHRA work. I was starting to do stuff with Motor Trend. I'd done a few races for Formula E here and there. And, it's quite a risk going freelance. It's a financial hit at the beginning. It's also, you lose your benefits. And oh, by the way, there's going to be a global pandemic that is going to stop you from doing all of that. So it was a very, sometimes life is there to, I don't want to say test you, but there are the moments, like I look back on 2020 now, and the things that I'm doing now wouldn't have existed without that. So there was a silver lining in it, but it was very scary from a risk standpoint initially. So it was right on the backside of 2020. Luckily in motorsports, we had kind of a renaissance across the board. Interest grew globally, and SRO America was in need of a reporter. The former reporter, they moved into the play-by-play role, and my producer was my producer on Formula E, and that was my first season with an additional motorsport. And boy, was it crazy. We landed, I'll never forget landing in Sonoma for the first race of the season. There's probably 220 entries that weekend. Of course, you'd watch the Rolex or Sebring or here and there, but I wasn't I didn't have an extensive knowledge base in sports car racing. Did as much research and homework as I could, but there is nothing like landing to a race, not knowing anyone, having 4 series, classes within each series. Oh, by the way, we're still wearing masks. And, our analyst that weekend was out with kidney stones. So it was like, okay.
Right. And a completely different language.
Completely.
Yeah.
But, it's those things, you rest on your laurels and you prepare yourself as much as you can. And, I look back on it now, this is my 3rd season with SRO. And, I think things just naturally progress and grow aligned with the work that you put into it.
Yeah.
And, now I can focus more on strategy. I can focus more on, different engine combinations and, a naturally aspirated versus a turbo. They're different, and what makes the front engine better at certain tracks versus the mid-engine and chassis. It's kind of being able to apply all that stuff now that I know the 120 entries
right.
and their car number, and there's those things kind of just grow over time.
Right, and their co-driver. For the people watching the podcast or listening to the podcast that don't know about just your normal average day at an SRO event, can you just a little bit, maybe take a minute just to explain like the back-to-back nature of like there's 4 to 6 races plus qualifying and practice, all that. Like it's a marathon of a day for you.
It is, from a work standpoint, it is without a doubt my toughest gig, and that's what makes it so rewarding. One, I get to work alongside Calvin Fish and Ryan Marine. And I think the unity that we've created amongst each other from a support standpoint to just complete transparency. There's no, I have this information, you have this information. We're constantly on a message thread with each other throughout the race. If I see something that's not going to make it to the broadcast, I'm immediately letting those guys know. But yeah, so I would say a typical SRO weekend is probably going to start probably 2 weeks ahead of the event for me. The second we get a confirmed entry list, I'm already at least creating the structure of my notes. I'm old school. I like pen and paper. I like writing. I'm someone that if I write it down, I have it. Yeah. And that's how I was in college. I can see where something is on a piece of paper in my mind and be able to retrieve it when necessary. Maybe you never need it, but it can be there and relevant. So I kind of start that as soon as we get the entry list. In this business, we are on planes pretty weekly, to say, and those are my office hours. I do most of my prep work on the plane or in a hotel. And I like to almost start new every week. To me, it's a way to remind myself of, oh, this is what happened at VIR, as opposed to, I could just take the notes that I had from VIR and go forward. I like to remind myself of the journey that a team is taking through the season. And then when I get on site, I normally get in Thursday morning. We'll do a feature around kind of top storylines of the weekend. And that's also an opportunity to walk the track, get familiar with the details and intricacies of each place. Friday morning, we'll hit the ground running. That's an in-person prep day. That's when I can collect stories, talk to drivers, have information that I can use during the broadcast, whether it be former winners, the current championship points leader, maybe this is a hometown race for someone, and just trying to always know that I can be in my back pocket with something should Ryan and Cal ever need it. Mm-hmm. Or just adding relevant stuff into the broadcast that helps tell the story. So that's what we're doing on Friday. And then Saturday, like you said, the marathon begins. We have typically 4 or 5 series. We ended up, and I love this for the series for SRO. This year, we ended up getting the Toyota GR Cup join us in the paddock. And that's just been really neat to watch it grow and fill out. And I know that our partners at Toyota have been really happy with what that's looked like and how that's been supported from our standpoint. But so with that, I do the interview duties on that. But then we have our big guy would be our Fanatec GT series. Those are going to be the GT3 cars, GT4. That's like a Sprint X kind of format. Mm-hmm. Driver switching, no real pit stops, but driver switching. Then GT America and TC America. I would say if there's an average entry count on those, I would say 20 to 30 cars per race.
Right, some with 2 drivers.
And so that's where, like, when I was saying earlier at the start of the show that, is one more driver going to like send my brain into like system delete system? for example, we were at VIR, or it could have been Coda. I think it was VIR, but Neil Verhagen showed up. And I'm like, oh, hey, Neil. And like, then I saw him at Spa. So it's like one more driver now isn't like learning 100. So
Right.
it's an easier transition when adding on to the pieces and to the concept. But yeah, it's a crazy weekend. We qualify and race 4 races on Saturday, and then we start over on Sunday with 4 more races. But it is one that you just feel like you accomplish something every weekend, because it is maxed out, but we know that we have given those drivers the coverage and I don't say respect that they deserve, but we've even, let's say, for example, Indy 8-hour weekend, which is our last race of the season. We also do a banquet that weekend as well. So
which you host.
Right. So on Sunday morning, when I am at the track still doing GT4 and TC America, when we have to do the award show that night, sometimes it's been thrown around, well, someone else can go handle those races on Sunday morning. And while it's like, ooh, that would be so great, it's like, no, I don't want to miss those moments, because we're wrapping up the championship for those guys. So no, I will be there. I will be present and give them their due that they give us. So I don't know. I'm often reminded that I'm human and that I'm going to be tired, but I don't know. I get motivated by it, I guess.
Right. Well, and I have to, like, I'm not that I'm exhausted by the thing, but it's like, wait, we didn't even talk about NASCAR truck. So it's like, and you do the NASCAR truck series. Like, how did that come about?
What a surprise. It was, I kind of heard rumors maybe at the end of last year, and then to get the call in January from my bosses to say, hey, there's a space open, and we want you to come try this out. And, you work, I'm a type of person, and people may have different styles or opinions on this, but I like to think that when you look at a company like Fox Sports, they know who's in their bullpen. And I am someone that I would rather keep my head down and work hard and let my work speak for myself than being the, hey, it's me. Do you need me? Hello. I trust the professionals. I trust that if they're like, hey, we think Amanda would be great for this, that means that they really feel that way. And it's then my responsibility to live up to that recommendation and to that word. And there's multiple, I'm sure, thoughts of processes around it. Sometimes putting yourself out there and asking for the job that you want. There's a lot to that. I think because I already feel grateful and gracious for what I have achieved. And I actually, COVID, that year is credit to that, because I think prior to that year, I was still kind of reaching and searching. And I'm sure everyone had kind of uncomfortable, long conversations with themselves through that year. And, if I kind of accepted that if it all ended, which it kind of felt like it might during that year. I mean, I think I ended up working a total of 11 events in 2020 because, you shut down.
Right.
And I had just, if it all ended, there was a lot to be proud of, and there was a lot to, you'd be bummed or things, but I could say that I did what I could do. And I still feel that way. I think it's not that you feel, I'm not sure I'll ever be content from a standpoint of okay, I will always want to achieve. I'll always want to push myself further than might be possible. But I think there's something to also being at peace with what is. And which is probably why I started meditating and doing a lot of like cognitive behavioral therapy and stuff during 2020 that I still think is very reflective in my life now.
Yeah. Well, just really quickly, I think we've gone through all of the different places where you work. For some of the people, though, they may not know the global scope of it. You did mention spa, and some people are probably like, "Wait, did she mean like a spa?" Or that? But spa in Belgium. So your work is also extremely international. Between SRO, Ferrari Challenge, different things like that, right?
Yeah. So, and that kind of started, the first race that I got to do overseas was through Ferrari Challenge. They have the Finale Mondiale that is somewhere in Italy every year. And this would have been 2021. It was in Mugello outside of Florence. And it just happened to work out because it was later in the year than it normally is. Traditionally, it's Halloween weekend, and that's always our penultimate race in drag racing. So it's not one that I can miss. And
who would miss the Bo Butner Halloween party anyway?
Yeah, miss that. You don't want to miss the Pro Stock motorcycle party. And the extension came. I was working the race at Indianapolis, and that was what they consider racing days. And then on the back side of it, I remember my boss saying, "Hey, I need to talk to you after the race." And I'm like, oh, because the thing, it's true though. And this is why Ferrari is one of the most recognized and honored and respected brands in the world. They are very cautious and careful with how their brand is presented, how it's talked about. And a lot of our job, granted, from the reporting standpoint to the journalistic side of it, a lot of my job, and I feel this whether it's SRO, NHRA, NASCAR, Ferrari Challenge, in a way, I'm a sales agent.
Mm-hmm.
I am a vehicle for messaging from this property to their consumer. And so my initial was like, oh no, did I say something wrong? Because I'm still kind of new with Ferrari Challenge. And I actually was with a girlfriend when I got the call in Speedway. We were having some barbecue, believe that. And they were like, hey, we want you to come work the Finale Mondiale at Mugello. And I'm like, I grew up in a small town in North Carolina. Like, do you really know what you've hired for it? Sometimes I think I'm like, do they know?
Do they know? Don't tell them.
Like, I grew up on a dairy farm on one side and a tobacco farm on the other. Do you know what you've hired, sir? But no, that was the start of it. And I still remember, and to their credit, I think sometimes it's lost that just because other people travel internationally doesn't mean that everyone has. So I knew nothing, but it was just like, yeah, just get here. We'll see you. I'm like, okay, where do I stay? Rental car. So I just went for it. I got a hotel in downtown Florence. It meant that it was going to be about a 50-minute drive to the track every day. But I felt like as long as I was like centralized in a space that was a bigger city, I would be safe. Not that I wouldn't be safe, but all the things that go through your mind and your mom's mind. And, I got a rental car. That was the coolest thing, being able to like drive yourself in another country, in a city and country that is full of crazy drivers. And I just remember zipping into the track every day and just being like, holy cow, I'm doing this.
I'm doing this.
And the weirdest part is that I think the GPS took me a different way every time. And so I got to see kind of the countryside of Italy outside of Florence and a lot of different lenses and different routes to and from. I ended up finding this awesome radio station that I still have on my phone. I'm a big like funk fan,
Mm-hmm.
discotheque, kind kind of that 70s, 80s R&B. And they had this like, it was called Radio Capital Funky Town, and you can download it. It's Luca Casello, they host it. Like, I still listen to it, and they do great during Christmas time because they have a whole Christmas list too.
Oh, wow.
Radio Capital out of Florence, Italy.
Funky Town.
Funky Town. So that was the first international gig. And then through the Ferrari stuff, I ended up doing esports for Ferrari in Milan last year. Had 4 trips during the week there. And I would leave a racetrack, rush to the airport, fly on a Sunday night or Monday morning, hopefully land by Monday afternoon or Monday night, depending on the route, and then work Tuesday, dinner Tuesday night, fly back Wednesday to go to work at another racetrack on Thursday.
Exactly how you thought your life was going to be when you were a kid.
It is
in North Carolina.
A lot of melatonin, I'll tell you. That is a wonder. That is a wonder supplement of the world. Luckily I adjust pretty well, but it's really neat because it's, wow, what a gift that motorsports transcends culture, race, age, ethnicity, background, and there's just this common collection over speed and performance. Yeah. And to be able to be a part of that and in different spaces and parts of, I've been to Africa through motorsports. I mean, what? Of course, I would have like on your bucket list, like you want to go do a safari or something in life, but I went to Africa for motorsports. It's freaking amazing.
Right. Yeah. Well, talk about that ambassador role and the that, you know, like you are one of the key sales people. Like, you know, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show again, like I said, other than just being awesome, Amanda, is like, I think that you and all the people in your role are probably like, you know, the most important, if not the second most important people in motorsports. Like, you know, probably the most important thing is the one-to-one connection, like that either a series has specifically with their fans or that a driver has with their fans. But other than that, like the connection is through you. Like it's you tell the story of what's happening, and or you're there to put the microphone, you know, at the proper time, or just to even frame the story, right? Because it's like, well, the person's going to say something, but like they were led into saying it by you, and then afterwards they're done saying it, and then you have to take it from there. You know, talk about that responsibility, the role, and just, you know, how it impacts the people in the racing business.
So I kind of look at all of it almost as an ecosystem that exists within itself, and kind of the cog and role that I get to play in it. When I was talking about being more than just the reporter side of it, and kind of being a vehicle for the messaging and sales part of a property or organization, a lot of times, while our broadcast may go off air at a certain time, you know, sometimes my job is just beginning, whether it's dinner with some of the sponsors, whether it's catching up with some of people throughout the organization. Yeah, I think that when you work in this business, your coworkers, the people that you're in and around, they really do become like family. And I think maintaining and curating and being part of that experience and journey with them as well is also part, if not one of the more important parts of the role. And don't get me wrong, there are many times when, you know, you don't want to smile one more time. You don't want to laugh one more time. And all you want to do is go to the hotel and order takeout and not talk to anyone. And then you get right into the moment and you learn something about a person that you've been in this role and position with for 3 years that you never knew about. And I think that's where the sauce is, the juice of this career. It's one thing, the work and being presentable and showing up for the role and doing your homework. I think extending that beyond just what the role requires is I don't. It's not required. It's all right. It's one of those intangibles.
Right.
But I think it often is probably the most important part of my role.
Nice. Well, we wind down every show with about 11 questions. We call them "Put Your Dukes Up," and it's 11 questions. Yeah, right. Put your dukes up. It's about. Oh my God! And by the way, I need to say the show's being produced by Murder Chandra, of course, from Drag Illustrated. JC Hudson. Show's also brought to you by Racers Club, which is awesome. Actually, we have to get you tied in with Racers Club, Amanda. You'll love it.
I would love that.
All the
I think it's funny that I just had a text message pop up on my computer from Taylor wanting some of my availability. Always working.
Always working.
You should have her on the show. She's incredible.
She is incredible. Actually, if you reply to her, tell her that you're doing a podcast with Jason Dukes and that you're being evil, and she'll go nuts. But don't tell her until we're done, because then she'll just keep going. All right. So 11 questions. Put your dukes up. Remember, it is a business podcast.
Why 11?
I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No.
I didn't know if that was like a special number to you. I like it. 11 questions.
It's 11, yeah. And no, it's a show that's in its infancy, so it also may turn into 14 questions or 3 questions, whatever. We'll see how it goes. But it is a racing business podcast. I will say the word "the industry" because you're in like all the industries. You get to choose how you answer the question. All right. So the first 4 questions are just a SWOT analysis. So strength, weakness, opportunity, threats. Question number 1, what do you think are the strengths of the industry?
I think that it's growing. I think the consumption of motorsports is, I feel like no matter what job that I've worked on in motorsports, there was always this, that this business is going away. It's going away. And I think fans and sponsors and brands keep showing up and showing out. And I think one of the biggest strengths of this industry is future growth.
Nice. How about the biggest weakness?
Well, that could also be a weakness, right? Then it's, are you being realistic about that growth? What's the distribution look like? How are you achieving that growth with also staying tried and true to what the base is? So I think there's kind of both layers to that. I think sometimes your biggest strength can be your weakness.
Yeah. We've gotten that quite a bit. How about the biggest opportunity?
New fans. We on the drag racing side, we get to produce 8 shows on Fox a year. And those are opportunities where we know that we're going to have eyeballs that we don't traditionally get. We know that, we probably need to explain the show a little more during those. We also know that it's a great opportunity to get new fans familiar with our stars and familiar with our drivers. So whether we do more production value from features and behind the scenes, but yeah, I would say an opportunity is new fans.
Nice. Biggest threat?
To the motorsport industry. I mean, it's one of those things that I would say motorsports for most people are an extension of their hobbies. And we need a healthy economy for racing to happen. And so I would say a threat would be any kind of economic impact that could affect entry counts, affect sponsors wanting to be part of the industry, and just kind of restricting the ability for it to grow forward.
Most overrated part about either the industry or being Amanda Busick?
Most of me. Overrated part. And I think that most people would probably say this, but that's why I was just saying earlier that I really try to use the travel time as office. And so then I go into it knowing that the time or the delays or anything that might happen along the way, or it's just being filled with stuff that I already have to do. But I would say the overrated part is the travel can wear on you over time.
Most underrated?
Oh, wow. Going to Africa. I mean, really, there's a lot that you miss out on in this business, be it weddings, the birth of your friends' children, being present for bridal showers, birthdays, Mother's Day. And so I think that when the risk of that, the reward is in the moments that we get to be a part of and that are created.
Nice. Biggest mental hurdle?
Mental hurdle. There's a lot of layers to that as well. Sometimes, it's, do I belong here? I've worked through that one pretty good in the last couple years, but I think there was, a long time of, and it's not necessarily directly related to being a female in this spot. I think it's being a newcomer in the spot. And now that I'm 8 years into drag racing, and to be able to share in those 8 years generationally with these drivers and with a fan, I don't feel that. I don't feel the newcomer anymore. I feel that we have a good team in place, and I think we'll continue to grow and grow together. I would say the mental part of it is your success is directly related to how much work you put into it. And there are ways that you can pretend, but that'll never be reflective of good quality work.
Mm-hmm. How about last word to someone younger than you coming up?
Oh, man. Enjoy the journey. It's like I said, there's so much that you're going to miss out on, so much you're going to risk. I think that when I was younger, granted, also related to my drive, but I think my impatience probably got the best of me a lot of times. It's not necessarily in an entitlement standpoint. I sometimes think that younger kids, their ambition is misdiagnosed. Someone that wants to achieve and wants more than where they are at present, I think is directly related to ambition and drive. But I think you have to be responsible and try to stay in the moment of that as best as you can. So yeah, enjoy the journey.
Nice. How about last word for the people that were ahead of you, some of the elders?
Wow. Thank you. I being able to talk about Beth Mowens at the top of this, she probably doesn't even know the impact that she had on me. She was in just her doing her job. I got to work with Bonnie Bernstein early in my career. So yeah, I mean, and from a standpoint of the industry, I get messages from Gary Gerald every once in a while, and he was in the top end position prior to me. And for me to get a girl from Gary Gerald every once in a while, that's freaking motivating.
That's awesome. How about last word to your fellow peers?
Thank you. Again, I feel like we're in such a space and maybe it's because discussions are had and everyone's more collaborative and supportive, but I think I am as strong as my lead play-by-play on NHRA, to as strong as I can be alongside Calvin and Ryan. And I really do. I take a lot of, for example, on drag racing, there's probably 60 people throughout the television compound working synonymously with each other to produce 1 second of television.
Right.
as someone that kind of is on the front side of that to present it, me having a bad day takes away all the work that they're putting into it. So I really am motivated by the work of my peers.
Nice. Well, my final word is thank you. One, thank you for being on the podcast, but thank you for being the salesperson for the industry, essentially. And you also inspire us by the work that you do, just like Jeff did to you. So thank you very much. Actually, I guess anything else that you want to say? Because other than that, the podcast just ends. It just ends. That's how these things.
I'm not as anxious as I was at the beginning of the show. So nice calming, you don't ever like the mic turned.
Well, that's what a lot of this podcast is going to be. So tell your friends, be like, yeah, I did it. And
just letting my boyfriend drive is, I don't know if you can tell that I like to be in control of things.
No, I'm the same way.
I didn't come off at all in this podcast.
Yeah. Luckily for me, I have motion sickness. So I use that as an excuse. Like, no, I need to drive. Other than that, I'll throw up all over the place. And people are like, all right, you drive. Yeah. But thank you so much again for the work that you do. Thank you for being on the podcast. I'm sure I'll see you in like 12 different places in the next couple of months. And I look forward to it. It's always awesome.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, thank you guys for joining us here on the Drag Illustrated, the racing business. I'm Jason Dukes. I'm your host. Thank you very much to our producer, Murder Chandra, JT Hudson. Follow us here on all of the Drag Illustrated podcast networks, and keep an eye out for everything that the Great West Buck is doing with Racers Club, with Drag Illustrated, the World Series of Pro Mod, and everything else. Actually, those are some other things we got to get you in on, Amanda. More stuff.
Hey, Wes is always hustling. I saw him in the pits at Bandamere last weekend.
Yeah. All right. Well, take care, everybody. Love you so much.